And we're going to start in saddle pose this morning. And especially if you're starting with this as your first pose, you'll notice that you want to come into it slowly. So we can even take a couple breaths, either sitting on your heels or in between your heels in hero's pose. And when you're ready, come back one elbow at a time. And then if you're ready, you come all the way down, but it might take a minute. One of the elements of yin is slowness. To not have to race through everything, to take time. That some things move so slowly, we don't notice them changing. So take your first inventory, checking out how your dreams are hovering around you still. Notice what feelings you woke up with, what thoughts you woke up with. Notice if you rested well or not so well. It's amazing what our sleep can heal and take care of in us. And just then start to notice how your thinking has been this morning, even if it's just been for a couple of minutes. And start to notice how your feelings are. And we can kind of think of the feelings as our middle realm. And sometimes we can confuse our thinking with our feelings. And sometimes we confuse sensations in our body as our feelings. But this is just not to add to confusion, but just to really illustrate to us that we're not boxed up in little, neat, separate experiences, but we're this conglomerate of all of these layers of experience coexisting. Notice the sensations in your body. And you may first notice, of course, in this pose particularly, you might feel it in your thighs or on the top of your feet or in your back. And when you're ready, start to come up one elbow at a time or even roll to your side. You can move, you can moan and grunt and groan. And this is, we're going to transition from saddle pose into Sphinx pose. So allow a little movement, a little full breath. You can even throw in a downward facing dog or a child's pose in between. And when you're ready, slide into Sphinx. Lining up your elbows just slightly in front of your shoulders. Feel your body relax, just maintaining enough yang to stay in the shape. And take a couple moments to dedicate your practice to someone else. And the cool thing about a prayer or a dedication or a meditation for someone else is you lose nothing. You can dedicate your yoga class to someone else and still gain from it yourself. It's really an affirmation and a practice in non materialism. Where not all of our gifts to others show up as a loss for ourselves. Quite the opposite, in fact. Can be somebody who's alive or dead. And it's something you never have to tell them. And then maybe also notice what help or invisible support you would like for the day or in this time right now. Growing up, I got this story about how, we all have guardian angels. And when we become adults, they don't, they're not quite as close as when we're children, but they're always there if you ask for their presence. Our presence is very simple. It doesn't have to be verbose. It doesn't have to be extraordinary. It can be little things, imperfect things. And then inhale, lift your chest up a little bit, active. And then with your exhale, sink down to the ground. And we're going to come into sleeping lizard. So you bend your right elbow and you bend your right knee and you turn your gaze to the right. With your left ear on the ground, maybe you need a pillow, maybe you don't. This is a posture for me that really helps me actually relax more sometimes than just lying on my belly. I don't know how it is for you. But there's something oddly comforting about it for me. Notice if you find the same. My dear teacher, Caroline Mace, talks about how it is such a, and it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but she talks about how it's such a disservice, actually, that we raise children to keep telling them how special they are. While it is true Each human being is special. On the individual level, when we have an expectation that our being is extra special or more special than others, then we might be confused and think that we are only worthy if we're being special or extraordinary or fantastical in some way. While in fact, we want to actually, we have to figure out the right way to do this, but raise our next generations to um, not hate the ordinary, to not loathe the mundane. When we have an expectation of special, we can actually miss our star, so to say, or miss our path. Oh, no, 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 that's too ordinary. I'm supposed to do something special. I'm here to be extraordinary. With your next inhale, come up onto your elbows and keep your right knee bent, and then thread your left arm behind your right elbow and come into the twist. So you might want to be a little gentle here, or you can just fling your right arm open. But coming into a twist in a different way, you can allow your left hand to hold your right knee. You can even straighten out your right leg if that feels good for you. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh it out. We have an odd, excuse me, we have an odd combination of living in this I am special, and yes, you are extraordinary, unique like a snowflake, and this kind of being ordinary. And then there's this other really strange, nearly affliction where there's this I just want to be normal. And growing up in Waldorf schools, that was often the plague of some of these kids growing up. It wasn't my story so much, maybe every once in a while, but not general theme. But my classmates would say like, oh, I just want to go to a normal school, or I want to have normal clothes. And we even would experience that, like some child would leave the class and go for, maybe a year, more like 6 months to another school. And then before you know it, they'd be back. Because that normal that they received actually it wasn't nice. They didn't like it, or they felt ignored, or they didn't manage, or they had different challenges. I've always talked about this, it's completely elusive. Normal is something we perceive outside of ourselves more than anything. But how would I know? I've always been a weird kid. I've always gone to strange schools, lived in odd communities. And then as an adult, becoming an artist, there's an expectation of uniqueness. But this picture of a spiritual practice not being kind of above us or outside of what our capacities are, or not just for the few. This is part of the gift I think we can find when we start to understand that ordinary is kind of this common ground that we share, not something to be loathed and disdained, but to actually find kind of community in it or common ground. And that ordinary doesn't bar us from extraordinary experiences. Now roll back onto your belly. And we're going to sleep our lizard on the other side. So you're going to bend your left arm and your left knee. Turn your gaze to the left. When I'm doing the hot yoga series, sometimes when there's like pressure on the belly or kind of a deep forward bend, sometimes it makes me feel really nauseous. And lying in this sleeping lizard actually lets me not freak out. So see if you can feel the release and relaxation that is available to you. So another one of my teachers, Orland Bishop, he made such an impression on me early on when I met him, in part because of some of the stories I heard about him. Now, they weren't these extraordinary stories that he also totally has, but it was the most mundane stories. For instance, the first year of Yip, I heard, after the 360 festival, Orland was still around when the Yippies were, cleaning everything, including the house that they've lived in for 10 months. And lo and behold, Orland ended up cleaning bathrooms. Years later, he talked about in a course I was with that, one of the most rewarding and fruitful spiritual practices is this direction of our attention, that no matter what we're doing, to give it our full loving attention is a spiritual practice. So whether you're cleaning the toilets or doing the dishes or folding your laundry, can you give it your loving attention? Can you be present even when it's not entertaining? Our presence does not bar us from insights or revelation. This experience of being in an ordinary life, even with our attention, we can have epiphanies, we can have flash of insights, often while doing the dishes or having a shower or a bath or, very ordinary things. Now come up onto your elbows and thread your right arm behind your left elbow, taking your right hand to your left knee, take your ear to the ground. If you get cold, there's some blankets there. Take a full breath in, and with your exhale, just sigh it out. So there have been many teachers who've talked about living in an ordinary life in an extraordinary way as part of the aims of our practices. And as we grow and mature in ourselves, we want to be able to hold both of these truths right next to each other, even though they seemingly disagree with one another. One is that we're ordinary and we're special. We have each one of us very specific uniqueness. And mission in this world. But embracing your ordinary, the day to day routines, the day to day rhythms, necessities, doesn't deplete your specialness. You know, for me, the fact that Orland Bishop could clean toilets was part of what validated or reaffirmed why he's one of the teachers of my heart. It's actually in these ordinary moments that we want to imbue them with our attention, maybe even our uniqueness. A nice example of this is the work that Marie Kondo does, where she, she's been what called the guru of cleaning up, tidying house, but where she even demonstrates and shows, how to fold clothes. And it's really funny or sad, depending what perspective you choose, because you'll find other people doing videos showing her technique. And when Marie Kondo does it, she has this whole beautiful process of like smoothing out the clothing or the cloth, whatever you're folding, and talking about how finding that you're grateful for this object, that this shirt makes you feel sexy, or this shirt keeps you warm, or whatever gratitude you have, to use that gratitude when you're folding it. And you fold in this particular way, yes, so you can have the piece of clothing stand up and then put it away neatly. But you see so many videos where people are just like going through the motions, but they're not talking about how you want to have this inner practice of bringing gratitude and appreciation to your stuff. Now start to roll on your back, and we're going to roll into happy baby. You can wiggle around first, adjust your fluffies. And then you're going to lift up your feet, stacking your feet over your knees, your lower back rolling down to the ground as you pull your knees towards your armpits. In this moment when, people demonstrate her technique without her essence, without the work of this energetic element. Yes, it will look neat, but it doesn't have the same kind of treasured feeling that you can get when you follow not just the way she folds stuff, but actually thanking your stuff for serving you. For me, that is a great example of doing the ordinary thing in an extraordinary way. And that is accomplished by your presence, not your perfection. Our attention is the most valuable gifts that we give the world. I mean, have you experienced this with a teacher sometimes? The sweetness of their attention allows you to have insight and experience. Or like a good teacher makes you feel when they're talking to you like you're the only person in the world. Or just simply loved. Even though our attention is invisible, we can notice what happens when we give it. Just think of a baby. Their whole world of communication is one of attention. And what joy it is just to make faces at a baby. Or the joy you feel when a young child smiles at you or grabs your hand, or it's the same very crude human gift that we have, that's true in the baby and true in us and true in everyone. This capacity to give our attention, allow our presence to be known. See if you can maybe soften. And then you're going to hug your knees into your chest. And we're going to do a 180 rock and roll situation. And we're going to come basically from being a rock into a caterpillar. So I want you to rock around so that your toes are pointing now where your head is. Beautiful. This also massages your back a little bit. We've done some back bends, some twists, and now we're going to round off our yin practice with a forward bend, maybe. So roll up to a seated position. And an early morning caterpillar is not as flexible as a late afternoon caterpillar. Don't know if you know this about caterpillars. So you are an early morning caterpillar this morning. So be patient. You know, some caterpillars are caterpillars for like 10 years. Okay. Lift up your heart and start to soften down. It's a caterpillar, then a butterfly that lives. I think it's even in the Arctic Circle. And this caterpillar can take 10 years before it's eaten enough food to have the power to transform into a butterfly. And then this butterfly lives for 3 days. Notice how much we're like, oh, but that's unfair. Because we think there's a value in being a butterfly that is more special than being a caterpillar. Huh? I find it fun to notice where I put these, you know, I have these things like that's more interesting, or that's more present, or that's more this, or more that. And I don't think the caterpillar would think that way. Allow your elbows to be heavy. Notice your tongue is fat and relaxed. Your jaw is soft. If you want, you can already engage your Mula Bandha, even with a gentle breath here. I find it much harder to engage my Mula Bandha when I'm not flexing or active in my feet. So in my yin practice, I explore that a little bit. And this invisible work of working with your bandhas is it's very interesting because it was so important, this bandha work, that in teaching people yoga for years, like, and now it becomes much more of an upper level yogi discussion. But in the Ashtanga practice, for instance, Pattabhi Jois, he wouldn't let you continue on the series if you couldn't keep your bandhas engaged. So you would only be allowed to practice the series as far as you could stay with this capacity to manage and, affect your bandhas or your energy through your bandhas. So once you didn't have the concentration or attention to keep your bandhas engaged anymore, that's when you would round off your practice and take Shavasana. We don't check in yoga classes anymore physically. Like Pattabhi Jois would actually like grope the feels, apparently. But some teachers can actually see it energetically. Now start to roll up. And let's allow our lion to roar our attention into warming up a little bit. So bring your feet to the ground, your hands to the ground, fingers pointing to your heels. If it's okay for your neck, drop your head back. Stick out your tongue, look at your third eye, and with a whisper, roar like a lion. And 3 is the magic number, so do 2 more. Squeeze your butt, lift your hips, and noch einmal. And bring your hips back down, maybe slyly wipe off your chin. And we're going to come to sit on our heels in Sesa pose. And bring your hands to heart center. Let your elbows be heavy. Lift your thumbs nowhere. Lift your chest, your heart up towards your thumbs. Close your eyes and feel as if there's a column of air from the crown of your head coming all the way down in front of your spine, all the way down to your root lock. Empty your breath. Take a big inhale. And then release your hands down. If you did take toad pose, you're welcome to do some foot slapping. The rest of us are going to come straight away into tabletop. Find your way there. And just start to make some rib rolls. Maybe you can feel like you're trying out for Suspiria or dancing a little bit in your tabletop here. Once you've done some rolling, maybe do some undulating, seeing if you can curve your spine in other ways. And then find stillness with your hands underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips, and with your inhale, lift up into cow. And let's take a couple breaths here. We usually just do one, but let's take a couple. So you want to feel like you're reaching your chest up. You have a little engagement in your belly, so it's not just flopping down to the ground, just a tension, really. A light hold. This is the way we engage our bandhas. It's not the squeezing of the life out of them. Now, in this posture, can you feel like you can engage your root lock? I always notice I have to activate my toes. That's the easiest way. Take another full inhale. And with your exhale, push the ground away and lift up into cat. And now you've added a third bandha. So you still want to feel like your root lock is engaged, your Uddiyana bandha is lifting up, and now there's the Jalanthara bandha as well. Then inhale, releasing the Jalanthara, come into cow pose again, one breath. And exhale into cat, one breath. Inhale, come into cow. Imagine you have glorious horns. If you cut off a cow's horns, they can't smell well. And then exhale into cat. They can't scent, they can't smell things. It feels like they have a cold. I mean, I don't talk to cows, but that's what I've heard. Inhale, come back to neutral. And stretch your right leg long and just pulse a couple times with your right foot. Feel that it's stretching out your calf. Now engage your bandhas, pull in your lower belly, lift up your right leg. Stretch your left arm forward. Take a full inhale like you're trying to play tug of war with yourself. Doesn't quite work. And then with your exhale, you're going to bend your right knee, reach back with your left hand, and assist yourself in a back bend. So this is kind of like would that be a bound cow? And then you're going to release your right leg, stretch your left arm out, and we're going to roll open first to supported side plank on the left-hand side. So your foot's still on the ground. And then see if maybe you can lift up your right leg and then stretch your right arm over your ear. Take a full inhale as you get long. With your exhale, elbow and knee touch together. Inhale, stretch long. Exhale, tap in. Inhale, stretch long. Exhale, tap in. Inhale, stretch long. And with your exhale, come down into all fours and get a little wiggle on. Find the stillness and then stretch your left leg back, pulsing a couple times with your left heel, pushing it back, feeling it stretch your calf. So notice your bandhas, pull your belly up, and then lift your left leg. I always have to remind myself to roll my pinky toes down to the ground, so my hip squares. Pull your belly in, and then balance out your left leg with your right arm stretching forward. With your inhale, get long, and with your exhale, reach back, hold onto your foot. Yogi's choice, you can flex your foot or point your toes, but feel the action, lift up your heart. And without going splat, release your leg, stretch your arm forward, and then bring your right hand down to the ground. Temporarily bring your left foot down and roll open into a supported side plank. Beautiful. And then lift up your left leg. Stretch your right arm over your ear. So you're extending, you're trying to get a nice long straight line. Get long with your inhale, and with your exhale, bend your elbows and knees and tap them together. So one elbow each, one knee each on this side. Did we do 4? I think we did. 2 more. Exhale taps, inhale stretches. Oh, yeah. Tap it in. And then stretch long and bring your left hand down to the ground, your left knee back to the ground, tuck your toes under, and then wiggle your way into downward facing dog. Find a small bend in your knees. Feel if you can engage your bandhas here. So start with the root lock, pull the Uddiyana Bandha in. And then bend your elbows and reach the bony part of your elbows, your elbow bones towards one another to open up your upper back here. Beautiful. Do you feel that? And then start to re-straighten your arms. Take a full inhale, empty your breath all the way, and quietly walk or hop your feet in between your hands. Inhale, halfway lift, strolling, reaching out your arms, strahlende Arme. Feel your heart opening, reaching all the way to your fingertips. And then with your exhale, hug the back of your knees. As you bend your knees a little bit, your head tucks in. It's like a little bird going to sleep. Now root down with your feet and roll up to the sky, stretch up tall. And with your exhale, Samastitihi. Inhale, stretch your arms up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, halfway lift, keeping your hands on the ground this time or on your shins. Then step back to plank. Let's take a couple breaths in plank. So you have your feet hip distance apart. You want to tuck your tail, engage your bandhas. So tuck your tail a little bit more, Sabine, perhaps, or lower your butt. Yes, there. Did that get a little bit more interesting? Yes. No. And then roll to the outside of your right foot, keeping your left toes on the ground, and just stretch your left arm up to the sky. Perfect. So it's like a goofy side plank. And then rewind. Bring your left hand down and roll to your left foot, right foot still on the ground, and stretch your right arm up. And then come back with your inhale to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or low cobra, whatever your body's ready for. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Take a moment and really check in with your bandhas. Can you keep them engaged? It's It's not so much keeping them engaged. You can't turn them on and like walk out of the room and not pay attention, because they'll open up again. But keeping your bandhas engaged actually means staying present with your bandhas, keeping your attention there. Take another fueling inhale. Empty your breath all the way. Quietly hop your feet in between your hands or walk your feet forward. Inhale, fly your halfway lift. Exhale, release and bow, bending down, hugging if you want to. And we're going to inhale, lift up Utkatasana. And let's take a couple breaths here. So get to know the pose. First, bandhas, bandhas, bandhas. So notice how the action of your legs helps you lift up your perineum. Engage it lightly. You don't want to squeeze the life out of your perineum. You just want to contract it and lift it. Find your Uddiyana Bandha. Imagine you're creating space between your ribs and your hips. That helps you engage your Uddiyana Bandha. Take another full inhale. And with your exhale, bow down. Now you're going to walk your hands out so they're right underneath your shoulders, and then put your left hand in between your feet, right in the middle underneath your face. And inhale, stretch your right arm long as you bend your left knee, coming into the standing weird twist. So I have to bend my left knee here, but if you're very flexible, maybe you don't. And then with your exhale, bring your right hand down, replace it, your left hand with your right hand, and take it to the other side. Beautiful. And then release your hand down, toe heel your feet out a little bit wider, and squat down into Malasana. Now, again, you want to feel that the action of your feet helps the lift of your Mula Bandha. So you want to engage your root lock, even here, even though it feels like you could just like let it all out. I mean, it's even the classic pooping pose. Never thought of that before. Anyways, TMI. Allow your heart to be open. You're squeezing your knees out. Now interlace your fingers, turn your toes in, stand up and do a little baby back bend. And with your exhale, come back down, Malasana. Place your hands on the ground, straighten your legs up. So you're lifting up into a forward bend. And then step back to plank. Step your feet together this time. We're going into the classic plank. Roll to the outside edge of your right foot and your right hand. Maybe your whole right foot reaches for the ground. Take it to your edge. So you want to stretch your arms away from each other. Maybe you can start to lift up your top leg. Maybe your right foot is reaching all the way. So eventually your whole bottom of your right foot's on the ground. Maybe you bend your knee and hook onto your toes. Maybe. And then come back to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, plank. It's a push-up. Ooh, yeah. And then take it to the other side. So you roll to the outside edge of your left foot. Stack your right foot on top. You can put your right foot either a little behind or in front of your leg to help with your balance. Now feel your bandhas here. Feel the action of your feet help you lift your perineum. Maybe bend, maybe lift your left leg. Your right leg would be much easier to lift than your left leg. Maybe hook onto your toes. And then with your exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And then inhale, move forward to plank one more time. And you're going to slowly lower yourself all the way down to the ground. And now before we, I was going to say, before we give up, that's not really how I mean it. Before we round off our practice, we're going to do a back bend. So we're going to keep our fire going. Kick up your feet and grab onto your feet. So if you have a hard time reaching your feet, you can take your knees far apart and then you reach your feet and then you slide your knees back together. If you need extra padding underneath your hips, you can either take your fluffy there or fold your mat up. And then once you have the grip on your feet, before you even lift up, think about your bandhas, engage your root lock, pull your belly up, activate it, and then kick your feet into your hands and pull your feet with your hands. And this action will lift your whole body up. You can just balance on your belly button. You can even rock forwards and backwards a little bit, giving yourself a belly massage, which is much more pleasant if you're empty. Reach through the balls of your big toes. Feel how this helps you engage your root lock. Next level challenge, see if you can relax your forehead. For 5, 4, 3, 2, release. Take your gaze to one side, let yourself recover. And then take your hands underneath your shoulders. Press your hips back to your heels. Cross your ankles, roll over your crossed ankles. And you're going to bend your left knee, bringing your left heel to your hip. Step to the outside of your left knee with your right foot. We're coming into a seated twist. With your inhale, you're going to stretch your left arm up. Now, you want to think your hand even can do a bandha. It's by engaging. It's a hasta bandha. So you want to lift yourself up, pull your belly in, feel your root lock, and then with your exhale, twist. You bring your left elbow to the outside of your right knee. Inhale, get tall and lifted. I always feel like I get regal. Now let's bring our chin back before we bring the rest of us. Oh, bring your chin over your left shoulder. It should feel good. Always looks sexy. And then unwind and do a nice little dramatic switch, however you want to do it. I just went like this. Feel that your whole left foot is on the ground. You can extend your bottom leg if you like, and then stretch up with your right arm. Let your arm actually lift your whole body up. And with the exhale, twist without getting shorter to your left. Inhale, get lifted. Exhale, get twisted. Notice that the root lock actually helps you here, engaging your abdominals, activating your Uddiyana Bandha, helps you in the twist. It also really supports your lower back. Then allow your chin to come back over your right shoulder. Feel your ordinariness and your specialness all in the same motion and breath. And then unwind. Place your feet on the ground like someone's pushing your belly button. Roll your back down to the ground. And find your way to Shavasana. And this is where you let everything go. You let your bandhas go. You let the rhythm of your breath go. You let your thinking go. Well, kind of keep your attention in the room and in your body even. And you can do this different ways. You can listen to the sounds. whether you're here like morning garbage trucks or birds. Allow your whole body just to be. Feel that you're being held by the ground. With your next inhale, start to invite your attention to the edges of your body. Maybe start to find a little movement in your fingers and your toes and your face. And then with your next inhale, stretch your whole body long. And with your exhale, curl into a ball, maybe coming onto your side. Feel the vibrancy in your body, in your being. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Allow your hands to meet at heart center. Feel the solidness of the ground below you and stretch daringly up to the invisible above you. And let's close with one Om. So empty your breath first, and then take a big inhale. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow forward together, we say, Namaste. And so much love. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You've been wonderful. I hope you had a good practice and go out there and be ordinary or wonderful.